Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pikmin 3 commentary. Last part, we found Charlie, who is alive somehow. I
Yay.
also love that when you bring him back, there's a rubber ducky now floating in the ship.
Rubber ducky, you're the one.
Speaking of Muppets.
I can just picture him singing that with the frickin' Muppet mouth he's got going on.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with rubber duckies.
Yeah. They talk about all of the daring adventure he had. On
And they're all
Kopai.
Operation like Rubber Ducky Fall or something like
There's
that.
like rubber ducky stuck in a tree, I think is one of them, and rubber ducky escape.
Although-
I think.
Now that we've got this space crew here, I'm sort of picturing this sort of epic Pikmin Mass Effect-esque RPG spin-off with this crew.
I would play that. Honestly,
I would love like the dialogue tree with Olimar looking at Louis and it's just like all dots.
That would be
Because Louis doesn't talk.
a potentially interesting spin-off, though, where they recruit a legion of Pikmin and go on a galaxy-spanning adventure, and we actually get world building and maybe some Pikmin puzzles in an urban setting or something.
that would be neat.
The good option on Louis is to smack him in the head. The bad option is to kick him in the balls.
Yeah, but I'm imagining the Renegade and Paragon choices, where the Paragon choice is to like make sure that none of the Pikmin die, and the Renegade choice is like use them as tools.
All the Pikmin.
you have a Jenna Page version of the Pikmin.
Oh God.
Oh, but like,
Oh,
like all the different Pikmin colors have their own loyalty missions, and the ultimate like trophy goal at the end is to make sure that at least some Pikmin of every color survive the final mission.
And there's like really weird subtext or like problems between like the rock Pikmin and the purple Pikmin because they're trying to take each other's roles and stuff.
oh, there would be so much racial subtext to the whole thing, like how the yellow Pikmin get abused for their big ears and whatnot. I mean, if you think about it a little bit, there's this meme where it's just like Pikmin, the game of of choosing tasks by color or something like that, which is like, oh.
Let's just get Obsidian in here to do the Pikmin RPG, okay?
But like, seriously speaking though, I do think that an RPG take on Pikmin could work. Like, I think people talk about like, oh, they should do the Kirby RPG, and like, as much as I would like to see that because I'm a Kirby fan, I don't really know how well that would like actually work.
It would basically
Gameplay?
just have to be a very standard RPG.
It would have to be like, yeah, like I can't see any RPG system for Kirby that would work unless it was like literally Paper Mario 1 and 2.
Or just do what Mario RPG did and just make it baby's first Final Fantasy or something.
I mean, I guess, but Mario RPG I think is harder than some of the other Final Fantasies.
Mario
on that
RPG,
console.
Mario and Luigi, the earlier Paper Mario games, they do a good job of creating a semi-fleshed out world to explore with quirky characters and fun and all of that. But it's a different kind of RPG than what you would probably get if you went with the concept of a Pikmin RPG and really leaned into the world building here, because there's a lot of interesting concepts that you could get into with Pikmin that you don't really have the opportunity to explore in a standard Pikmin game.
Yeah, I really would like it, but I mean, at this point, I'm
mean, I don't-
kind of just
I-
impatient for
Yeah, at this point
For
we
a
really
full
do.
sequel.
We really do just need to get that next numbered sequel out of the way before considering any spin-offs.
that's almost like a mantra that should be slapped on the wall of every Nintendo executive's
Yeah,
office.
you know, do Metroid Prime 4 before you do Federation Force. How about that?
Or at least Samus Returns.
Samus Returns at least was, yeah.
It's one of those, no one would have had a problem with Federation Force if they released Samus Returns first.
They at least
Or if
announced
at
it
least they at
first.
least announced them at the same time. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes,
I mean,
that too.
Yeah, then we would have had some main series Metroid thing to look.
Because they
forward
came
to.
out like 1 year right after the other, right? Because Federation
Yeah.
Force was like 20. Although I remember getting the impression that Metroid Samus Returns was a fairly quick development turnaround from what I remember. So maybe it wasn't like.
It was so
ready,
weird
but-
though. Like, it's one of those cases where I felt like they did the opposite of the usual modern gaming thing where they announce a game too early and they announced it like too close to release.
Well, Nintendo does that a lot. Like, they just did that with Paper Mario Origami King, where they announced that, like, June.
2 months before release. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
okay, it's fine that you're not announcing a lot of these games 5 years ahead of time so that we have to wait forever to get news for them. But at the same time, you know, run at least some PR on your dead franchise to let us know to keep watching it.
Yeah, I feel like Nintendo just gets burned a lot whenever they do that because there's for a really long time there was always this meme about Nintendo games getting delayed. I remember I forget which year it was. It was like E3 2014, 2015, something like that, where somebody asked Reggie about why do all these Nintendo games keep on getting delayed, and Reggie's response is, "Oh no, we don't delay things that much." And he literally said that the very day they announced a delay on the Mario Golf game for 3DS.
I get the feeling that was a lack of communication between the American and Japan branches.
Yeah,
responsible for that.
probably.
Likely so.
But it's still it's still a funny kind of thing. But Nintendo was really bad about delays for a really long time. Like especially Zelda.
Yeah.
10
Zelda's probably the pinnacle of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But I mean, I guess you've got like Metroid Prime 4 now. Got delayed.
Prime 4 is slightly
is a very-
different.
Yeah, Prime 4 started development, and then it was one of those rare things. It was like, okay, we can't agree on what we should be going with it. Well, we're just going to start over.
Yeah, at least I think the smartest thing that they did was
be
admit
candid about it.
admit that this is gonna need to be redone. So nobody expects
They're not just
to
saying
see it.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not asking for 3 years every E3. Where the fuck's Prime 4?
God, this battle is a fucking bloodbath.
Yeah, that's my fault because I only brought like 8 rock Pikmin with me, and they're immune to this guy, because they can't get crushed. I was trying to be cheeky and get through it without using rock Pikmin, because I have to bring every type up here anyway. If I had just brought rock Pikmin, or had left the other guys on the bottom where they're safe, this would have taken less casualties, pretty much.
If you deploy more Pikmin than needed for the item, will you carry it faster?
Yes, but there is a max, so
It's usually double the amount, depending on the size and shape.
Yeah, so like if an item has a minimum of 10, you can usually put up to 20, and then it will go faster. I don't really know if it's like twice as fast or how the math works. I know that there's an exponential component to it where once you, for like stuff like breaking down walls and doing damage, but I don't know about like the carrying stuff. There's a lot of math in the behind the scenes of this game.
So I have a question. In Pikmin 1, we controlled one character controlling all the Pikmin. In Pikmin 2, there were 2 characters. Pikmin 3, there's 3 characters. Do you think Pikmin 4 is going to have 4 characters?
Hard to say. I think 3 is the max you can really ask people to multitask for.
You say that. I would think that they will bring back everybody from Pikmin 3, including Olimar. So there's 4 right there.
So if they can make it work, great. Personally speaking, I sometimes found it hard to be efficient with 3 characters, let alone 4.
Doesn't necessarily need to be 3 characters all at once, though. They could do some clever.
Yeah, here's the
parallel
Olimar
campaigns.
chapter. Here's the Alf chapter.
What I really want is to be able to play the main game co-op, because you've never been able to do that. You've been able to.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Is like you were mentioning multiplayer, in like was it Pikmin 2?
Yeah.
It's like, but the main campaign never had co-op at all.
No, in this game it doesn't either. The side modes you could play co-op, and that's actually really fun because each of you can like delegate a specific portion, and there's a lot of strategy to go on there. So, especially if they were to go back to it being a more open style like Pikmin 1, I think that adding co-op would be a really good choice, because that way, then you could just have more exploration and have people exploring different parts of the map at once. If they were to do Pikmin 4 and have 4 playable characters, what I would want them to do is to finally add co-op to the main campaign, and then have 2 groups of 2. So maybe like you can play as both Alf and Brittany as player 1, and Olimar and Louie as player 2, and each of you can explore the world at the same time. I think that would be cool, personally. I don't know if they're gonna do it, especially considering Nintendo Online still is kind of shaky at best a lot of the time these days. And I feel like a game like Pikmin would probably be hard to do online. Maybe not necessarily hard to do, but I feel like if you were to do it online, there would be a lot of desyncs because there's so many different AI scripts happening at the same time. You know, like how if you're ever playing Mario Kart, where you throw a shell and you clearly hit the guy in front of you,
But they weren't there.
yeah, but they weren't. Yeah, they weren't there technically, so the animation of them being like, whoa, still plays, but they're still zooming forward at full speed because on their system, they didn't get hit. I'm trying to imagine stuff like that happening with 100 Pikmin, and it seems like a nightmare. So that's making me think.
I think it all depends because I don't want to because I think that's assuming that scripting, coding, and all that thing is the same as it was 10 years ago as it is today. You know, so maybe as far as we know, maybe there have been improvements.
Again, the other issue is Nintendo Online.
It's not like multiplayer RTSs are unheard of. It's kind of standard for the genre. It's just that Nintendo is not very good at multiplayer.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, and MMOs are a thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that it can't work. It's do we trust Nintendo to make it work?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, multiplayer has been, like one of the key things of RTSs since the genre began, you know. Like games like StarCraft and Age of Empires are basically still running to this day and age because of their multiplayer. Pikmin being a single-player RTS would be, you know, you'd think that would make it easier, right? Because there's not a competitive element to it, but...
I mean, I do appreciate Pikmin being around to be a predominantly single-player RTS, even though I'm not really big on the genre myself, but I don't like multiplayer much in almost any genre.
It's interesting. Like, generally speaking, I like multiplayer as a casual kind of thing. Like, oh, I'm very happy to play like a board game with my family or whatever, or Mario Kart Online where there's no stakes and it doesn't matter. When it comes to if I'm playing a multiplayer game and trying to get good at it, like for example, Smash Brothers or Splatoon or stuff in that sense, I generally tend to lose interest and get frustrated when I hit
because
like my
everyone's
skill.
better than you.
Yeah, when I hit like my I don't think skill gap's the right word, but like when I hit the wall of this is where I stop improving, you know, and there are just people who like I can't beat, or once I get to rank A of multiplayer, I can't beat the people in rank S, and so it's frustrating because I feel like I'm stuck, and I guess that's just part of one of the problems with taking a game like that seriously is that it stops being fun, which is kind of what happens when you start trying to be not really professional but serious with any sort of game or sport.
If you're gonna be serious about multiplayer in any competitive sense, there's always gonna be a phase where you do nothing but lose, and that's not a fun phase. You basically, in order to continue having fun at that point, you have to consign yourself to not having much fun during the learning process.
Yeah, like, I imagine this is the sort of thing that professional athletes go through, where I doubt that if you're playing the game, like playing basketball at a Michael Jordan or LeBron James level, you're probably not having a lot of fun playing it, because it's too serious for you to really have fun with it, you know?
Well, and for a time, eventually you're going to get better, and that's not going to be a problem anymore.
But I guess just the thing with video games versus professional sports is that I'm not making $3 million a game.
There is that.
Yeah. Also, I took the liberty of cutting past points where I'm not doing anything interesting. /
Yeah, you're just kind of sitting around watching stuff get broken.
Yeah, which happens. Unless if you're perfectly optimized at this game, there are going to be points where you're just you have to wait for something
Periods
to,
of
to finish.
downtime, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not really worth watching in a commentary, so I decided to just skip past it. So whenever you see a fade, that's basically me just saying nothing important happened between
Games
them.
with that kind of gameplay really should have turbo modes or fast forward features more often, though.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I guess Pikmin is trying to get around it by that's what the multitasking is supposed to do. Is like, okay, while I wait for Brittany's team to break down this wall, I'll switch to Alf and do something else. You do see that a lot more, especially in stuff like turn-based RPGs, where fast-forward battle options and auto battle
Oh
options are
yeah.
more and more
The
common.
the Trails of series literally just has a turbo button by default on one of the shoulders now. So
The I'm sure it happened before this, but the first game I remember making a big deal about it was Bravely Default, where there were all the options to like you can just turn off the random battles entirely and you don't fight them.
that sounds more like a cheat code, to be honest.
It was a cheat code,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Basically, like you don't pay for it, but it was one of the features that they planned on adding to the sequel. But they put it into the port of the first game that they made because our version of Bravely Default 1 was the re-release version in Japan, kind of like Kingdom Hearts, I think. And so they added all these features that were originally planned for the sequel, like the speed up function in battle and the turning off the random encounters. I don't know why they added the ability to turn off random encounters when you think about it.
It's because if you want to just get to somewhere,
Yeah,
you
if you
just
don't want
can't.
to deal with you're in the dungeon already long enough, just want to get the hell out.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so like I get why they have the ability, but I don't get why they make it into like a menu thing as opposed to most RPGs do that by giving you like repels or whatever,
Or some
letting you.
ability that your Guardian Force can learn that shuts off random encounters or something.
Yeah.
Most RPGs I played, those no encounter abilities are very late into the game.
I mean,
I
you
mentioned
just
Final
need to be
Fantasy.
playing
I mentioned Final
better
Fantasy VIII
games.
specifically because it's a Diablos ability that you can get early on in Disc 1, as long as you
Yeah, you
grind
can
for it.
you can get
Yeah, I was gonna say.
you can get the Holy Protection ability, which is that in Dragon Quest, like
It's more important.
really early.
It's more important in Final Fantasy VIII though because the enemies scale up in level with you, so having the encounter known ability early allows you to control that somewhat.
Okay, so I know that Final Fantasy VIII has that. Is it just the random battles or the bosses?
The bosses
too?
don't give you experience points. They don't give you experience points. They give you AP, but they very explicitly do not give you experience points. You are meant
think,
to be
I
able
think-
to play the game at as low a level as you want.
Yeah,
That's so
I
weird,
think, I think
though.
Final Fantasy VIII was the first game to do that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Seven.
That's why it
gave-
was done
gave
so
experience to the
sloppily.
bosses.
Yeah, it's such a any game that incentivizes you not to do its battle system just confuses me. Sticker star. God, I
Get
should
that
get
checked
that.
out. That's
Yeah,
a
I
very
should get
specific
that.
cough you have.
Yeah, I know. I've had it since 2012. It's weird.
Ted, are you eating cardboard again?
Well, in Final Fantasy VIII's case, the idea was that you could level up the monsters on purpose in order to increase the quality of the spells you could get from them, which should in theory increase the amount of stats you can gain by attaching magic to your stats. Unfortunately, like you don't need to fight the monsters to get that magic. You can just focus on items. So you actually
Triple triad.
it's actually like way more effective to keep the monsters as weak as possible, get magic from other directions, and just boost your stats without leveling up.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. It's just like, okay, so you fight the monsters to get better magic, to have a better chance to fight against the monsters that wouldn't be stronger if you didn't fight them in the
The
first
idea
place.
is that if you're using the junction system effectively, your stats will increase out of proportion with the stats of the monsters, but it increases way better out of proportion with the stats of the monsters if you just don't level the monsters up at all.
Fuck, that
This is a
game's
good-
weird. We'll see you next time for Pikmin 3.